Podcasting will be a thrill. Grandpa and chill, grandson and friends. Grandpa and chill in full effect. We talk about it all, yeah, put it all on the set with that pet craze too. We chillin' with Rosie, come through, stay tuned, yeah, listen closely. Cause this the millennials and the silent generation coming together, discussion in rotation. This is Grandpa and Chill.
Hey guys, very happy to have you here. We got another amazing episode of Grandpa and Chill. I'm here with my grandfather.
Me?
My millennial co-host, as always.
Me.
And our amazing producer.
Me.
And I'm me. And today we have an amazing guest for you guys. Name is Cedrick.
Hello, hello.
Welcome. Hello.
Good evening.
How are you doing today, Cedrick?
Doing great. Still sunny in Southern California, so what is there to complain about?
Ooh, nice.
Wow. That's crazy. I don't know about everybody else, but it's pitch black here.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's pretty dark.
Well.
Daylight saving time.
Yeah. Is the weather still nice and warm?
It is. Yeah, it was in the mid-80s today.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I'm Brandon, by the way. I'll let everybody else introduce themselves. But
I'm Grandpa. What part of California are you in?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Southern. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm Sierra. I'm the producer.
Great.
I'm Phines, one of the co-hosts.
All right.
Do you like 2020 Tony?
I do.
You know, you've heard of the song about Southern California.
It's not totally true, but most of the times it's true, though. Most of the time it's true, given that we're in about a 4-year drought. So,
what's the song?
That's funny. It makes it even funnier. The song.
Maybe you're fortunate with a drought. I just spoke with my daughter who lives in Vancouver, Canada, and the entire town is underwater.
Oh, wow.
I mean, even homes are underwater.
Oh, wow. Dang.
Yeah.
Oh, there's been crazy flooding or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So we will progressively get into it, Cedrick, but would you like to tell the audience a bit about it?
Sure. I'm Cedrick Bridgeforth, born and raised in northern Alabama. An Air Force veteran. Now I live in Los Angeles, California, where I've resided for a little over 20 years now. And I serve in several capacities, but I'm an ordained minister in the United Methodist tradition and teach at a local university and serve as a director of innovation and communication for our regional office here as well.
Amazing. And you're releasing or have released a new book?
It's already out. Yeah, it is
amazing.
Already out. And yeah, loving it. The book is Alabama Grandson, A Black Gay Minister's Passage Out of Hiding. And excited about that project.
How long did it take you to write?
Probably, pen to paper, probably about 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. A gift of COVID.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Had you planned to write it before COVID happened, or was this sort of COVID inspired?
I had not planned to write this book prior to COVID. I was actually working on a different manuscript. And once COVID kicked in, I was just in my head. I had turned 50 and was just, there's something about 50, that just, that's half 100. Like, how am I 50?
Yeah.
Right. And so just reflecting on life and where things are for me right now, and really just looking at a brighter future, and just wanted to spend some time just reflecting on how I got here.
Yeah. And the book is sort of just a journey through your life.
It is, yeah, and it's told around essentially 7 lessons, I think, that repeat themselves over and over in my life, and they really function more like mantras throughout as well. But So it's not just, the book is not just a linear telling of my story, but it gets me from birth to about the middle of last year. Yeah.
Mm. Did you find faith later in life, or you always had it? And have you ever lost faith for a period of time? Or?
That's a tricky question. So I'll answer it like this. I was born and raised in the church, right? So,
Sure.
yeah, the question of finding faith, I think that's a gradual and ever evolving enterprise for most folks. But yeah, always in church, always connected. Of course, I've, had my bouts of rebellion and hedonism, as my grandmother would call it. I've had those on occasion, but still, always connected within my faith tradition.
Gotcha. Yeah, I come from a Jewish background, and I actually went to church for about a year or two, and I had a really positive experience. But I had a sort of loss of faith, I would say. Like, I'm very culturally Jewish, but I wouldn't say religious. And I always find it very interesting, people's spiritual journeys on top of their religious journeys.
Mm-hmm,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, so. Yeah. And a lot of people don't differentiate that way, right? Until or unless there is something that, teases those apart. So I think that's a sign of maturity, of growth, of evolution, when we are able to see them as distinct parts that need to be nurtured or managed.
Yeah, and as a current minister, this is probably a very obvious question, but you believe in God, yes?
I do.
Yeah. How has your faith grown over time? Like, what have you found that you love from the church and have sort of let go?
Yeah, I think the thing that's always been constant for me is just community. It's built-in community. So at life's highs and lows, it's just built in. You don't have to go looking for it. It's there. And so I've always appreciated that. Of course, there's always a dark side of every wonderful thing. As humans, we find a way to mess up the best of everything. But for me, the church has offered community and then a vehicle by which I've been able to explore and grow my own spirituality. So community and spirituality have been the two, I think, greatest gifts for me throughout my lifetime.
Yeah.
Well, this is like the first time I've had like such a hard time thinking of questions, because you've answered all of, like, even the one, like, stuff that you've said, you've explained it. So I'm like, oh, he didn't leave anything like unanswered for me, except for, I guess, 6 months is a very quick time to write a whole like memoir to me, or like some like your whole life. And I'm thinking like maybe your background, military and church life, has you like have like a good self-discipline to work every day, or how much did it just like, was it just creativity to hit, or was it something that you diligently worked at?
I think it was all of that. I think it was just the right time in that, the world had shut down. And so, a lot of time that I would spend traveling, going to different conferences and meetings and going back and forth to work was now free time. And you can only binge shows, so often before your head explodes, right? So the world shutting down. My last trip that I taken right before I ceased traveling was a trip back to Alabama. So I had this very poignant experience there, and that was really where the idea started to germinate. And it really wasn't a manuscript. It wasn't to be a manuscript. It started as a series of letters to my grandmother. So it was just writing, and they became this series of stories that I was enjoying reliving, remembering, reconnecting with, and trying to understand. And so that was the creative part, but also it was there was a lot of efficacy in just looking back at those stories and seeing how relationships had developed or fallen apart or come back together. I wondered, like, whatever happened to this person, right? So I found myself looking for people, and some of them were dead, and some I reached out to and never heard back from, some I reconnected with. So it was a lot of things that were happening just in this this lull, this low period. And so it just gave me the time and space to just kind of go inside and pull out the memories.
Wow. Okay, now the questions are firing. I got questions. I guess before though, I want to know in the background. There's three of the same things. Like what is it? The book that's behind you. There's there's that one, and then right above it is the same one, and then there's another picture to the other side that looks very similar. What is?
Yeah,
what is
this
that?
right here, this is actually the story. This is a printout. Back in 2016, February of 2016, I was invited to speak at a Black History program in Nashville and at what's called the Upper Room Chapel. So anyway, so I was there as a guest speaker, spoke, and the person who served as the music director for that service came up to me after I finished, and she showed me her phone, and she said, "This is what I was inspired to sketch while you were speaking." And she showed me that. And I was like, "You did this on your phone?" And she was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Can I have it?" And so she printed me a copy of it. I stuck it in my folder and, put it away. And so back last year when we were working on finishing this project up and, looking for cover design, I remembered this. So I pulled it out and then shared it with the publisher, and she was like, "Oh, this is perfect." So that's what that is. And this is just propaganda. In case you don't see that, you see this. Like that's
it.
the book, and then that just stays up there all the time. This just comes out when I'm filming. I don't do that when I'm talking to my mom or my brother or anything.
No, not to remind them.
I would. I'd be like, you see this right here? I'm
I
published,
know, right?
babe.
You did that right
Okay,
there. Somebody drew me a
I'm
cover, yo.
published.
Yeah. That is so cool. I
Yeah.
love it. Dang. All right. You seem very reflective. I admire, like for sure, like the fact that you're in you and yeah. What can you? I just have assumptions in my head. I'm like, okay, religion. You're that must mean you get a lot of time to like focus on reflection and prayer. But am I just assuming? I'm asking like, how do you get so reflect? You just seem very comfortable in your own skin, which is great.
Yeah, that's probably a lot of therapy. Probably a lot of therapy, prayer, and some craziness in life, right? Like all balled up together. That's brought it out. There's some gray coming in, So I'm earning it. I'm earning it, Phines. So, but no, I think part of it is a spiritual discipline. My grandmother was very an inward person, a very inward person. She spent a lot of time in solitude and praying and reading and that sort of thing. And so I tried to model that even as a young person, and then into adulthood, tried to bring that forward. So that's a part of my regular practice and discipline. But I think most of it is really just some good therapeutic practices and getting it wrong a lot, and just working at trying to find a better rhythm for life, and not getting stuck in my head so much either.
If no one else, you have a question, Grandpa?
Well, I just was wondering why, I don't know how to phrase this, why don't we trust our own ancestors' beliefs? Or do we? In other words, why do we not stick with what our own ancestors believed?
Well, I think I do for the most part, but I think most people, I think just it's human nature to rebel, to push back, to question, and I think if we do that without some guidance, I think without some good information, we end up lost, or we end up recreating or creating something else that may or may not be to our good. But I think for me, my basic beliefs, my basic understandings about family, about faith, just about being a decent person in the world, I think were passed on, to me, by my ancestors, and still guide a lot of the decisions and choices and relationships that that I maintain today. Now, I have to say there are, some ways in which I appropriate the faith that I don't think my grandparents would be all that excited about. But the basis, the foundation is there.
Well, like how do you do it different that maybe that your grandparents wouldn't agree?
Yeah, I think my my interfaith, my understanding that people get to God through a variety of expressions was not something that I ever heard them talk about. They thought the Presbyterians were going to hell, so, and they were Baptists. So, it's like, what? Like, you don't even know the history of how those came to be, clearly, so just a openness for me. I think there's more openness just because of my exposure to a broader world and to people from different backgrounds, and I've lived in different spaces. They never moved more than 40 miles from where they were born, right? So their experience of the world was very limited. So I think just the openness in general to different types of people and how people come to faith, how they express their faith, and even how people organize and define family. Even though our family was, I need a whiteboard to describe, who was biological and who was not and all that, but they still espoused what I believe to be a very traditional understanding of, a family, is that it was finite to a point, and I don't live that way.
How did you arrive at the denomination that you're involved with?
Mm-hmm. Well, growing up, my mom's family was Baptist and my dad's family was United Methodist, and so we grew up going to both. And so I grew up in an ecumenical household, and found parts of each one resonated with me. And there was something about the order within the Methodist tradition that spoke to me. The emphasis on education and a learned clergy was intriguing to me. Yet that free-flowing, get your stomp, your clap on in the Baptist tradition, I was all about that too, So I grew up with both of those, and it wasn't until I was in seminary that I really settled on United Methodism as the path that I would pursue. And at that point, I was 30, so I was able to live the first 30 years of my life just kind of in both worlds, if you will.
Your 7 lessons. Can you tell us about some of them, or do you want us to hey, go out and read it?
No. I was just, it's just right there, right? But no, it's pretty straightforward. And what I've said to people, even if you don't have time, don't care to read the book, I think just opening up to the table of contents, I mean, they're all right there, right? And you can see them, and I think that's worthy of time and effort. And so, sure, the ones that really stick out to me is chapter 1 is about trust your gut, right? And for me, that's that inner voice, that inner knowing, that thing that we just know is right, that sometimes we silence because of what our friends, our family, or society, or what may be easier, may be calling to us. But there's something within us, I think, that's always speaking to us and trying to challenge us to be our higher and, better selves. And so for me, that just boils down to just trusting your gut and really leaning into that. That's one. And then listen well, listening well, particularly in today's environment. Everybody's talking. And many of us are stuck in our own echo chambers. And I think the art of listening seems to be lost in the midst of that. We hear what we want to hear. We hear what aligns with what we already agree with or believe, and tend to shut out everything else. And so for me, listening well is another one. And a third one I would lift up would be learning to let go. Because I know in my own life, I mean, I've held on to people, jobs, situations. I mean, we've all been in situationships, right? So holding on to those things that we know are not serving us well. But learning to let those things, those people, those ideas, move on, so that space can be created for the new thing, the better thing, the right thing, the next thing. So that we can create our preferred future. I mean, so those are 3 of the 7 that stick out to me that I would most definitely want to make sure any and everybody at least heard.
Wow. I want to hear, Brandon, what you think about that?
Many questions, but one that I had was, do you frequently, and where and how do you have conversations with people outside of
I do, and
your echo chamber, as you call it?
It's interesting because of the role that I play within my faith community. I'm in a leadership role, so that exposes me to a whole lot of people from a lot of different cultural, ethnic, language, theological backgrounds, and political persuasions, and I think just from the exposure I've had from a very young age up until now, a variety of people from different parts of the world, different parts of the country, with different family structures and belief about God and life and liberty and all that. I think it's just made me a very curious person. And so I'm able to go into situations with people that I assume I may disagree with or hold a different perspective from, but I bring a sense of curiosity. And I try to come with more questions than answers into a situation, so that I am prepared to listen, so that I can be engaging as much as I am engaged in a dialogue. And so one story is that comes to mind is within my particular area, there's this group of folks who are rather conservative, theologically conservative, and believe it or not, I'm not, and everybody knows it. But this group, they have their annual gathering where they have a big convention where they come together and talk about all the conservative things and ideas that they want to talk about. But, I am one of the few non-conservative types that they regularly invite into that space to be in dialogue with them, so that we can learn and we can understand and I think broker better relationships. And I think that's just because I've presented myself as open, because I want to be, and I'm guessing they sense that, and I try to leave judgment at home as much as possible. Now, that's not to say I'm judgment free, but I try to leave that girl at home.
You mentioned before, I think it was your grandmother, the belief in hell, and like how strict that is. Do you personally believe in hell?
I do. I live in Los Angeles. There's no way to live in Los Angeles. There's no way to live in Los Angeles and not hold that belief.
Oh man, I feel that. Do you think that people outside of the faith would go to hell? My sister and I, we have this joke. We're Jewish, but right before we die, we'll convert and then just be good to go. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I guess this is another departure from, sorry, Grandpa, but this is another departure from my theological grounding, is I don't hold these visions of this fiery place somewhere, or even this utopic space in the sky, where all things are well. I think that's our work to do here and now together, to create, those better spaces, those kinder relationships where justice and equity really exist and abide. And for me, the hell of it all is the work that you have to do to get there, and I just think there's so much that's in peril in our current context, that worrying about something that we, one, don't know anything about, is a waste of time. When we could really invest our energy in trying to make who we are and what we have available to us now as best as we can.
So as a minister, you would say that the afterlife is something you know nothing about?
Exactly.
Is that?
Exactly.
Whoa.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm
I
not
really
trying to be
respect
patronizing, but you have a very appealing aura to you. You really do.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I I agree with you, and yeah, I find that scary, and yeah, the unknown.
Did I hear that you were in the military?
Yes, I served in the United States Air Force for 4 years. Yes.
And you gave it up? You didn't want a career, stick with it?
No, that was never the plan. People ask, did you go in the military to get money for college? Did you go in expecting it to be a career and you hated it and you got out? No, there was no grand plan except I wanted to be like the recruiter that I saw that day. I liked how he looked in his uniform. I liked how he spoke. That was the first time I saw someone that I wanted to emulate in every single way. I wanted to do whatever it was he was doing. If it was digging dirt 30 hours a week, I wanted to do that. If it was the local trash man, I wanted to do that. He just happened to be an Air Force recruiter. And I trusted that whatever he was doing would help to get me to the place that I was envisioning he was at in his own life. And so for me, it was it's only about that and only ever going to be 4 years.
In your denomination, are people more liberal or conservative? Or you can't make that distinction?
It depends on where you are. Geographically, it's an 12 million member denomination globally. About 40% of the membership of the denomination is on the continent of Africa and the Philippines and scattered across Europe. And the other 60% is here in the U.S. And right now we have provisions in our governing documents that say that homosexuality is incompatible with Christian teaching. Well, you need not look beyond the title of my book and go, wait a minute, what's going on here, right? So it's really about where you are geographically as to, how you would answer that question.
Go ahead.
Go, Grandpa. Sorry.
You go ahead.
Oh, just you wrote in your podcast profile and in the book the journey of coming out as gay and also being very deeply in your faith. I'd love to sort of talk about that with you.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Oh, you just want me to start talking about it?
No. I mean, I guess.
Well, you didn't come out, right?
Journey?
You were outed.
Yes and no. I count my coming out as, when I was 19 and I wrote that 4-page letter to my mom and dropped it in the mailbox and sent it off to her. To me, that was my one and only time of coming out. Right. And the outed part, in 2016, which I call the horror of 2016 was actually, the, work of a former friend, who it wasn't so much, disclosing that I was gay. It was disclosing that I was cohabitating with someone and I was not married to that person, which is against the rules. And this person also disclosed my HIV status, which was not public knowledge. And so that was the distinction that I would draw between coming out and the horrors of 2016.
Yeah.
I know my favorite singer when I was a kid was Johnny Mathis. I didn't even know that he was gay. I didn't know that. But, I just loved his music.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I wondered about him, right? When I would see him, I would wonder about him. And then later to find out, it's like, oh, I was right.
As a minister, how do you think about the fact that more than half the human race is not into Christianity? more than half the people on this planet, as far as I know. I may be wrong about the figure, but I'm assuming primarily India, China, most of Africa are not Christians. I'm assuming that.
Yeah, and that number, the hold that Christianity has had on the world, has declined greatly over time. It's just continued to decline. And for me, that's not a bothersome reality, because I think there are many roads that lead to God, and some of them are organized and well funded, and there are others that are found on a dirt road somewhere, or in some village on the edge of the Kalahari. I just think there are many roads that lead to God. So that doesn't trouble me. What troubles me is the ways in which we care for ourselves, and the ways in which we do or do not care for our neighbors. Like, for me, that's a greater concern, because if we don't get a hold of that, I don't think it matters, how many temples, how many synagogues, how many mosques, how many churches, how many wisdom circles. I don't think it matters how many of those we have if we don't learn how to care for one another and be in something that that feels like and is expressed as a right relationship with each other.
I went to temple for a long time and church for a little bit, and I'm not actively practicing either now, but I'm super curious for you. I have a lot of friends that have left because I think there's a lot of good in religion, but historically a ton of bad too, right? And how do you sort of balance those two scales of having pulling the love from it and wanting to stay, while like reconciling sort of, I don't think religion is hateful, but people are hateful, and they definitely do a lot of hate in the name of religion,
Yeah, they do. They do. And they do it in the name of politics, and they do it in the name of nationalism. Sure. They do it in the name of a whole lot of stuff. And so for me, it's this sense of, I feel that my lot in life is to occupy this space in Christendom, at least as I understand it, right? I feel like that's who I am. That's a part of my identity. It's a part of, I think it's a part of my call, part of my work in the world. And I feel like, if I am in tune with that, and my commitment is for a better world, for a meaningful relationship, for care for the earth, right, then I can be some positivity in the midst of whatever negativity, may come its way. If I were to leave, then all of that comes with me. And all of those who may be drawn into better relationships, deeper understandings of faith, or disciplines that may improve the quality of their lives, they may not find it any other way. Now, that's not to say I see myself as some kind of savior, but I do see myself as a door, as a gateway, as a bridge, as a rope, whatever metaphor we want to attach to it. For those who are trying to find their way, to at least be able to connect and find that way, and not only know of those negative realities that do exist.
Mm. Do you still find yourself day to day battling with people over disagreements on, religion or politics or any of that kind of stuff?
No. Yeah. Okay. See, growing up, here's the thing. Like, growing up, we weren't allowed to argue. Arguing just wasn't allowed. Right now, my parents argued with each other, but we were not allowed. We were not allowed to argue. My grandmother didn't allow, arguing. And so, just the way I've just functioned in life is, if I'm not good at it, I don't do it. And so I never got good at arguing, so I just don't do it. Right. So
sure.
Now I can disagree with you. And, and we can take opposing positions, and we can have, an engaging, intellectual, even emotional discussion about something. But I don't argue with people, and I rarely try to convince anybody of anything.
But it seems that a lot of religious people, and I put of the more conservative type, are judgmental to me. They seem to be quite judgmental. Am I wrong about that?
No, I don't think you're wrong about that, but I would balance that and say that I think, progressives and liberal types are just as judgmental, right? I mean, so, bigotry takes all kinds of faces and forms. And I think just because you hold the same perspective that I hold does not excuse you, to be able to be mean to people or dismissive of other people's perspectives or rights, right? And so, I think I've found it on both sides. Now, I would rather the more conservative people just be better about themselves. Now, that's my public statement, right? So, but I think it exists in all camps.
An example of what I was alluding to, if you take like in the Jewish religion, the ultra-Orthodox kind of like don't even believe that the others, the conservatives and the reforms, are even Jews. Or possibly, and I may be wrong about this, but people sometimes in the Catholic faith don't necessarily believe that other Christians are really Christian.
Right.
That was an example of what I was alluding to.
Yeah, that dismissive denial. Really, it's not even dismissive; it's out and out denial, right? So we're the one true church, right? So, like, what does that even mean, right?
Yeah.
Sierra, did you have any questions?
Yeah. So, growing up as a gay Black youth and like growing into like a gay Black young man, I guess what is something that you think a lot of people don't realize about maybe your experience growing up as like a young gay Black person in Alabama?
Yeah, good question, Sierra. I would say, from a deeply personal space and perspective, I would say that for me, that was the reality that I was aware of my queerness or my gayness long before I was aware of my Blackness. And what I mean by that is I knew from a very early age that, I liked the little boys, and I knew that was not something I could say to anyone. That was not something I could express in any particular way and live to tell about it. And so I spent a better part of my younger years just struggling with that, wrestling with that. And it wasn't until I was more like, high school where I started to realize, wait a minute, I'm Black too, it's like, and people know this, and I need to start paying attention to this. Right. So I would say that's probably the thing that people wouldn't readily know. Yeah.
It seems that a lot of people that are in the arts and that have real talent are gay. I don't know if it's any more than straight people, but it just seems to me, from what I see throughout my life, that there are a lot of gay people in the arts, whether it be in music or acting or whatever.
In those creative
I'm just wondering
spaces.
why they're in the creative parts.
Yeah.
I'm wondering,
And even in the church. Yeah, even in the church you see that. You see a lot of the more artistic, parts of worship life, are orchestrated by or dominated, by folks who are gay or queer or, just in a non-traditional kind of space. So, and I don't know.
Would you rather be called gay or queer or what terminology do you prefer?
I say gay. That's just because that's what I grew up understanding, knowing. As I'm in more and more spaces, I when in Rome, I speak my Roman, right?
Yeah.
It's great.
So, what have you enjoyed the most about the whole book writing process, whether it be like the drafting, the manuscripting, the editing, publishing?
Yeah, I think it's probably two responses to that. One was when it was clear this was going to be a book. I reached out to my siblings and I said, hey, this is what I'm doing. These are some of the stories that I'm writing about that are coming up. And I need you all to tell me if there's anything that you want me to stay away from, to change up, not mention, whatever. Let me know now. And they laughed and they were like, it's your story. Tell it. Nobody knows us anyway, So that was hilarious. My mom had a similar, but more, I think, reflective response, because after I finished the manuscript, finished all the writing, which is probably about just shy of 600 pages, all the writing, and the book is, I think, like 260 or something like that. So there's a lot more out there that didn't make the book, but I sent all of that to my mom. And sent it along with 3 red felt tip pens and said, cross out anything that you want me to delete or redress, in any way. And a couple of times, I call her, she's like, oh, I've been reading, I'm a slow reader. I've been reading, but it's good. And I'm like, oh boy, I don't even know what that means. A couple months that had gone by, I called her and she answers the phone kind of huffy. And I was like, what's going on? She's like, I didn't read that book yesterday. I just didn't. And I said, okay, that's not what I was calling about. And I was like, but, clearly there's something you want to say. She's like, well, yeah, day before yesterday when I was reading, I felt like I was on the judgment seat and I wasn't getting on it yesterday at all, so she's like, but I picked it back up today and I'm reading. And when she finished reading the manuscript, she called me and told me she finished. And I was like, okay, let me know what you think and anything you want me to, change or, state in a different way. She said, no. She said, 1, I think it's very well written. 2, she says, I don't want you to change anything because I believe this will save people's lives.
Wow.
Yeah.
So leave it like it is.
Oof, I thought she was going to be like, I need more red pens.
At least you gave him a chance, Nova Borderlone out here just letting it all, just going off.
I thought about Nova when I was
Right?
writing. I thought about Nova. I was like, oh, so that's why I was like, let me call. Let me have this conversation. On the front end, and that way, I know.
I don't want to hear nothing after this. Okay, you all got to see it. I don't want to hear anything else.
Yeah.
I love that you got your whole family supporting you. That's excellent.
Yeah. So once that happened, the process itself has just been the process. It's been great to do things like this, to talk to people, meet people that I otherwise would not have some vehicle to connect with. And, have colleagues, friends, people who've known me my whole life and those who I've never met, just talk about how they've resonated with different parts of the story and struggled with some as well. Right. And so all that's been good. But the joy in it for me, was my siblings saying, do you, and my mom saying, this will save people's lives. And I couldn't ask for anything more than that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Was there anything that you learned or remembered or worked through as you're writing the book that you hadn't realized beforehand?
Yeah. In the book, I go back and forth with my biological father. I have a different name for him that I use in my friend circles, but we just met. I'll leave it there for these cases, but for this case. But there was a time where I know I could not have told even bits and pieces of that story and held myself together. And so writing through it, reading it aloud, having other people ask me questions about it and be able to respond and do so from a place of confidence and pride in myself for how I have grown and how I've been able to just live on, I think was a a great joy as well that came from going through the book and like coming to this place of, yeah, I think I've really let him go, you know? Yeah. And I don't think I knew that prior to writing this.
Wow.
Gotcha. So there was no day of like, now I'm good to write the book. It was just gradual progression. And yeah. Wow. Wow.
Yeah. It was a revelation that came on the back end of like, wait a minute, you know, it's like, I'm doing this, right? I'm doing
it. Sounds
this.
very therapeutic for you, Cedrick. And do you have any intention to write any more books?
Well, as I told you, it was just shy of 600 pages, so I still got 300 something already written. But you know, one of my friends said, you know, I appreciated Alabama Grandson, but how about California Uncle? I want to know how the rest of this story goes, right? So so I don't have a plan right now of what I will write next, but I do want to do more writing because it was a great experience. Things I've written and published before were more about leadership and all those kinds of things. I really appreciated this just type of narrative writing. It was very therapeutic, and I think opens a broader conversation and makes deeper connections than anything else I've ever done in my life.
Yeah. You mentioned therapy before, and I was curious, like advice to younger people to that are trying to work through things from their past. Like, is that hands down like a thing, like necessary, or what would you give as advice to work through things?
Yeah, I always advocate for therapy. Like, find it, do it, get it, no matter who you are, how old you are, where you come from. Like, you need a therapist on speed dial, and you always need your next appointment on your calendar. Everyone, always, at all times. So I offered that. The other thing is, you know, finding that one person that you can just kind of lay it all out to, I think makes a big difference in our lives. And knowing that no matter what we say, what we do, we're not going to be judged. You know, we're going to be supported. Now, we may be challenged, right? But we're not going to be judged and annihilated for sharing our truth. So I think finding that one person, that one space where we can not hide any part of ourselves is life-saving. So I would recommend that as well. You know, if you don't have access to therapy, find that, right?
I'm sure you're that person for a lot of people, right?
I try to be.
Yeah.
I try to be. You know, I really try to be. And, you know, I guess we'll know at my funeral, you know, when people speak, you know, share my eulogy, I'll know if I succeeded at that or not. But I definitely try to be, because I know the benefit that it's been for me to have those people in my life. And, you know, when I didn't have the capacity to get my whole family or my whole community or the military or the church or whomever to support me, to allow me to be open, to understand my story, I couldn't get everybody, but I had that one person I could turn to, right? And that made all the difference in the world. Because you don't always need everybody, but you will always need at least one space or one person that you can just be fully yourself with.
Yeah.
Do you get along with other ministers?
I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah, quite well. Yeah, quite well.
It's not a competitive field.
Not for me, because I mean, it can be. Let me name that. It can be, but my path, my vocational track within my denomination has been an anomaly, right? So the positions I've held were usually held by people at the end of their careers and whatnot. So I just kind of had a very different experience. And that's enabled me to engage with folks in some very different ways. And I think it impacts how people see me and engage me as well, right? So
how'd you hop through those latter steps?
Well, Brandon, I don't know. You know, I was I was appointed. Our bishop called and said, "Hey, this is what I want you to do. So this is what you're going to do," right? And that's happened, you know, 3 or 4 times. and it's worked to my benefit, and I've tried to use that to benefit others, right, and to bring other people along, and try to really inspire people to not be locked into this is how it's always happened before, right? Yeah. You have to serve 20 years and then you can do this, or you need to go to this church and then that church and that. No. Do your work, do your best, like sharpen your gifts and just be the best you can possibly be wherever you are. And that will open whatever doors that need to be opened for you, right? You just be ready when it opens.
Yeah.
Wow. Yo, okay, cool. I've been holding in so many comments, which is even better because it even brings up a question I have about like being an active listener. But at the same time, I'm like, I got to keep these questions in my head for the when in comments I have, which is hard. I was going to ask you about that just because I kind of want to get into the weeds, but a lot of I'm a big fan, Cedrick, of all the stuff that you've been saying, and it does have me like I could definitely nerd out with you with a lot of different things that you were saying. But not to get too lost in the weeds too much. I wanted to know also, like, how many siblings do you have, and what do your parents do?
Yeah, let me take that in reverse. So my mom is retired. She worked her entire career for General Motors, and she was also a union organizer for the United Auto Workers. So I grew up with union people in our house as a teenager. So that shaped me in a particular way. And my dad, the one I grew up with, he died in 2005. But he was a farmer. We grew up on the farm until my parents divorced, and then we moved away. And so of my mother's children, I'm the middle of three. So I have an older brother and a younger sister. Of my mother's children, of my biological father, I have an older sister, and of my dad who raised me, I have three brothers and two sisters. So there are 8 total. I'm the youngest of the boys, and yeah. See, you need a whiteboard. I need a whiteboard back here to draw that out for you. So 4 boys, 4 girls. I'm the youngest of the boys, and the middle of my mother's children. Yeah.
So 5th total out of the...
Yes, of the 8.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I guess, let's see. I wanted to comment about a while back when you were talking about suffering and that being, hey, the suffering is here on earth, living here. Oh yeah. I mean, I do agree in a certain sense. I feel like I like Buddhism, when the part that like, hey, living life is, me trying to like and do everything, like clean, wipe, clean my house and stuff like that. That's my suffrage because I'm never content, right? But that's a good thing, Not like, to me it is. It's not like a bad thing. It's like, hey, I'll be doing this for the rest of my life.
Right. Right.
That's one comment I wanted to make. Oh yes, also too, before you pass away, I'm sure you've affected people, and they have told you, and they've given you flowers before you go. At least I hope they do. If they don't, hope they're listening and give you some kudos to being great. There was something else. Trying to keep track of something else you said that I had a comment about. I don't know. What questions about some of these lessons. I think it was about. I'm sorry. I lost it. Dang. I should have just interrupted y'all talking. Just been like, hey, I gotta come.
Well, the 3 I named was trusting your gut, listening well, and then learning to let go. Those were the 3 that I named.
Learn to let go, even though you've kind of sprinkled it throughout your whole speaking, what you're talking about. But yeah, I agree. I think that is a big hang up for me and myself, is just trying to learn how to always I'm constantly trying to remember to just kind of let go, or like I feel like there's a lot of chips on the shoulder. Just being a black male in general, or just being a young man, or just being a person in life, is you always got this like chip on your shoulder about something. But I think let go was something that I'm still always practicing, and I like that as a lesson. And how do you? Do you feel like you're still letting go, or do you feel like you've figured it out, or?
No, it's constant learning. And in fact, right now, this season that I'm in right now, I guess the application of letting, learn to let go is paying attention to resistance, right? Like, so when I face resistance, the way I've generally, dealt with resistance is I've just found a way to overcome, just mow over it, right? It's like I'll process my way through it, and overcome it. But in this season, it's like just pay attention to it, right? Just pay attention to it. Like a couple weeks ago, I flew to New Orleans, and schedule was all messed up. I decided I was just going to drive over to see my mom. It's only 3 hours away. When I landed, they didn't have a rental car for me, and so now I'm in New Orleans. Like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to have a rental car. There's no rental car. So I go to my friend's house, spend the night, get up the next day. Call the rental car place. They're like, oh, yeah, we have your car. It was, with the other agency. Well, how was I supposed to know that, right? So I go get the rental car, boom, boom, get in the car. I'm driving the 3 hours from New Orleans to my mom and my stepdad's place. My youngest sister calls, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? She's like, oh, I'm on my way to mom's house. And I was like, oh, well, what are you going there for? She's like, oh, I'm picking her up to bring her back to my house, which is 6 hours away, right? And I'm like, well, what's that for? So she tells me what all that's about. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I see. Had I gotten that rental car the night before, I would have gotten up before daylight and I would have driven to my mom, surprised her, and I would have been the one surprised to find out she was about to leave to go all the way up to my sister's house, right? So that resistance was in place to keep me from messing up that whole plan. The very next day, I go on the campus of Dillard University. If you've ever been on the campus of Dillard University, it's not that big. The drive is like a horseshoe that goes around. Everything is off the main drive. My friend had driven me around the night before. I saw the bookstore. I said, I have to speak at noon. I'll come at 11, so I can go to the bookstore. I want to get me a Dillard sweatshirt. Life's going to be gravy. I get there, drive around the horseshoe. I don't see the bookstore. And I'm like, how could I have missed the bookstore? So I go back around again, still no bookstore. So I park and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go do my little noon speaking engagement thing. I'll have my friend walk me over to the bookstore. I'll get my sweatshirt. No big deal. I finished speaking at this event. They give me this gift bag. Inside the gift bag, what was there? Sweatshirt. Pay attention to the resistance, right? No matter how big, how small. It's like, sure, I could have gotten out of the car, ask somebody, where's the bookstore? Show me where the book. Nope. Like just let it go, and see where this leads, right? So for me, that's how that's expressing itself right now. It's just paying attention to the resistance.
And that's perfect because them sweatshirts,
sometimes
they charge you a grip. They'd be like, oh, what? You want to put just a single letter on it? That'll be $70.
Yeah.
That's tough. It's tough.
We can't always move in the direction that we want to move right away, but there's a mystery to it that kind of works its way out eventually. I just had a situation where I was supposed to have a dryer, not very interesting, but a dryer hooked up, and the guys came in and delivered it and left it in my living room, and I got very annoyed with them because they were supposed to take the old dryer out and hook this one up. And so I got in an argument, and after they left, and I started really looking around, I realized I didn't have an outlet for that dryer, the one that they were bringing in, and the floor was a mess. I had to take up tile and everything, and there would have been no way that they could have set the thing up anyhow. But I couldn't see that, So I guess
we were speaking before. Phines' solution was to curse him out.
That was my plan. I said, hey,
Sierra.
they was talking trash to him too about how they weren't gonna do it, and they brought it all the way upstairs and everything. But they were just like, you'll be fine. You'll be fine for 3 weeks. Just jump over it. Just step over the dryer.
I remember my comment too. Is when you were talking about your purpose to spread, to talk to write your minister and stuff like that. And it sounds like similar to what I've been talking to my friends about with art and why I do art. Because there was a time when I was younger, I was like, oh, all art's been out there. There's no reason to make art. Everyone, like me expressing myself is just everyone else expresses themselves. There's no reason to do it, right? But as I'm getting older, I kind of what you're saying kind of relates to me, going like, well, this is it's touching people, and it makes me feel good to touch people and make them feel things and make them think about things, and that's okay. That's cool. Yeah, no, that's just something you said that had me thinking, and I relate. Not maybe so much of doing the work you're doing, but me making art, I guess.
Yeah, and it's occupying your space, right? I mean, because there are people that you will connect with that you will know that others will never know, they'll never connect with, and the simple fact that you tried will inspire somebody to try, right? And
is this God's, or is it just my ego? When someone goes, I'm inspired by you, I'm like, yeah, it makes you feel good. You're like, yeah, this is the best feeling. I can get this all day. Is that should I be like, oh, this is a holy feeling, or should I be like, oh man, I need to check my ego?
I mean, can't both be true, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, can't both be true. Yeah. Because how else is God going to express God's self but through your actions, your behavior, your presence?
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah. I mean, we'll question God all day, but Phines, we see you, right? So we're not going to question your existence.
I like it. Yeah, I like it. Something to think about. Food for thought. I'm gonna mull it over in my head.
Yeah.
As far as letting go, for me, it's definitely easier said than done. I count myself very lucky in many, many ways, but I do have, some shit where it's like, can't not hold grudges, or can't, I'm the type of person that, like, bottling and then moving on is how I operate, So with everything that you've been through, how have you managed to let go with such, big hurdles in your life? And I don't know if you have advice for me, but
I named earlier, going into conversations with people from, with different perspectives and whatnot, of going into those spaces with curiosity. I face my own life with curiosity, right? Just because of the path that it's taken. I'm just curious, like, where is this going, right? Because I look back and I see, kind of the crooks and the turns that it's taken. So I approach my own life with a sense of awe and curiosity, not like, ooh, look at me, but just really like, okay, like what am I really about? What am I doing? What is the impact that I'm having? And then, I have some spaces, where I can work through those questions that I do have, and I can name my angst and my anxiety, those places where I lack confidence. I can name those, and get help. Now that's taken time to put all that in place, but I have it, and I'm grateful to have it, and it keeps me from exploding, right? Like, even when all that craziness happened, and my whole life got turned upside down in 2016, people are like, oh my God, like, I would have killed people, and you just, you were just walking around and nobody knew any of this, crap was happening. And it's like, I knew it was happening. And there were a group, around me, my team around me, clearly knew, but, those were the spaces where I, acted out and expressed and did what I needed to do, because I expected to live on the other side of it. And it wasn't going to take everything that I had and everything that I had built up, for me to just throw it all away, with a lapse in judgment, publicly, and, damage other relationships and, reputation and all those kinds of things. It's like, no, there were some places where I could do that, where I could work that out. I could bring my questions. I could bring my hurt. I could ball up on the floor and cry, and get up and walk out of the room with my head held high, and, and do that with a sense of peace and with utmost integrity.
Are you talking about that special person, like a friend to talk to, or like a therapist? Are you?
No, not my therapist is on the team, but not in that room, where I'm laying on the floor crying. My therapist would tell me to get the hell up, right?
Right,
Like, what
right.
are you doing? I don't pay you to lie on my floor, right? So that's what my therapist would say. But after 9 years, he can say that to me, right? But no, trusted, trusted folks, who know me and have my best interests at heart. I have no question about that, right? And you'll hear me use, I'll say friend. You won't hear me say my best friend or my good friend. You may hear me say ex-friend. That is the only qualifier I put on friend, because for me, friend is like love. It either is or it isn't. And, there are no gradients in that for me. Either you're my friend or you're not, and either there's love between us or there's not. There's no in between with all that. And so, when I talk about my crew, those are my friends.
Yeah.
Those are my friends. And I don't have hundreds of those.
Me neither, man.
I have a question for you too, or some advice you could give anybody listening or anybody that is going through a situation like you did, and some advice that that you give them, because I know that I think about if I was in that situation or something like that would happen. You're saying you had a close circle. Those would be the people I'll be most afraid of disappointing more than I would even care so much about. I probably would care about my whole reputation, but I know I would be definitely being like, well, I think I'd be even more withdrawn than maybe even you, thinking like even the people closest to me, like, well, they've already, my reputation's been ruined. I don't want to talk to them. I don't know. Like, I don't know if I'm the only person that would think like that, but is there any advice you would give someone to be like, if they're going through a situation where they're going through a challenge like 2016 for you, like how'd you make it through the end and made it out of it, and yeah.
Yeah, that's why I think it's important to always have that space ready, right? And it's not something you create in crises. It's something that you live with, right? And so it's there. And that being the case, you cannot disappoint, right? That's not even what the relationship is about, right? That's not what it's built on. That's not what it's about. It's about loving one another through and in whatever it is we find ourselves, facing. And it's when we don't have those spaces that I think we do act out publicly. I think we do, burn a whole lot of bridges, and we make some choices that are not always in our best interest. We may be right, but the choices we make may not be in our best interest, right? And so having that team, having that circle, having that space already a part of your flow, a part of who you are, for me, just lets you know you have a place to retreat to, right? And so it's not something that you like, oh crap, I'm in trouble, let me gather. No, it's, let me throw up the bat signal. They know what that means. Whoa, here we go, right? And it's showtime. It's not tuck and run time, because if your circle are the people that you have to hide from, that's the wrong circle.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's not like saying that it's almost the opposite. It's not like I support my circle and my people so much, and I know they would do everything, that I'll be more like, I don't want to disappoint them. Like, like, oh man, I don't want to come putting that burden on them already, or hearing their disappointment in me. Yeah, I think that would be some of the feelings. I mean, I'm sure they would probably be like, "Oh, Phines, you could have come to me this whole time," or yada this and yada that. But I know me personally would probably just be like, "Yeah, nah, I'm probably not going to do that. I'm probably not going to burden you or see your disappointment in your eyes. I'm probably going to be more withdrawn." I say that to say that that's special about you. I think maybe, or maybe it's not. Maybe I don't know.
Well, I think part of it, though, an example of this, if I'm hearing you correctly, like when the stuff was headed toward the fan in 2016, I was like, oh, this could be very public. This is bad. Like, this is really bad. I can't contain this, right? This is bad. And I didn't want my fam. Did I say it was bad? I didn't want my family to be hurt, right? I didn't want them to be shocked, surprised, hurt by anything that happened to me, right? I've always, tried to keep my best foot forward with them. I want to be that sibling that they're all proud of. I want to be that cousin that they all say, he made it, right? He's doing it, right? And so, I protect all that, right? So let me be honest with you. I protect all that, right? I want that shiny side, facing forward at all times. And because of that, there were some truths in my life that I had neglected to bring my siblings in on, right? Because I wanted them to see me as this almost unflawed individual, right? I know how to handle my stuff. I got it together. I'm not asking anybody for anything. I'm good, right? I didn't want to tarnish that in any way. But what that did over time was it set up this false narrative in my mind about who they were and how they viewed me. Right? I never asked them any of that, and they had never asked me for that. I created that narrative in my head. So when all turns to crap in 2016, and now I'm like, oh boy, I need to bring them in on everything that's going on. So I reach out to my brother and my sister, and I'm like, hey, we all need to get on a call tonight. I got to tell y'all something, which is something I've, not done unless like our parents were sick or, something crazy was happening. And they're like, okay, those two, they're thick as thieves, right? Those two, thick as thieves, always have been. There's 6 years between them, but you would think they were twins. They are thick as thieves. So, reach out to them, boom, boom, boom. We get on the call and I tell them what has happened. And I tell them, the potential, of where this could go, like this could make national news kind of thing. And in that conversation, I disclosed my status to them, which I had never done before. And my brother, who reflects emotion, maybe once a decade, stepped right in and said, I have a couple questions. And I was like, oh boy, here we go, right? Because I have my narrative that I've created, over all these years of living about them and how they view me. And he said, I have a couple questions. He said, one, he says, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I think so. And he said, okay. He says, do you need us to set up a schedule so that one of us can be with you at all times while you go through this? I said, no, I don't think I need that. And he said, my final question is, why did you think you couldn't have told us this before now? And I did the soap opera cry, and, to deflect and get out of that real quick. But I had to wrestle with that question. And we had a long, discussion about it. My sister was equally as gracious and loving and supportive and all of that. And, and throughout that whole ordeal, one day I get a call from my brother. The next I get a call from my sister. My brother would call, my sister. And so they took it upon themselves to just create an intentional schedule to be in touch and I had to reach out to them and apologize to them for underestimating their compassion. And ultimately I had to apologize to them for really dismissing their humanity. Because that's what my false narrative had done to them. And in all my effort to try to hold up my good light and, be the golden boy and all that, I had done damage to our relationship in doing that.
Do you know whether they actually knew more than you thought they knew?
No, they didn't. They did not know because I'd only, disclosed this information to my mom, and she had not shared it with them. So no, they didn't know until I told them, which was amazing because my mom, she shares things.
Who do you like to read? Anyone in particular, and also what kind of music do you enjoy? if you do.
Yeah. Maya Angelou has my attention right now. I've been going back reading a lot of Maya, and probably because I guess it was about a month and a half ago, I was at a restaurant and they had this video playing, and she's quoting the poem "Smile." And they interweave this Paul Laurence Dunbar, "We wear the mask" in the midst of that, and I was just captured. And so I've just gone back, and Maya Angelou really has my attention right now. And music, I'm a lyrics guy, so I'm more of a lyrics guy than a genre person. So if the song is about something, I'm on it. And if the latest TikTok, trend is, bumping a beat, then, hey, that'll be in my head when I go to bed at night too. Right. So kind of all over the place musically.
Are you excited for 30 this Friday?
Trying to figure out how not
You
to
can say
disappoint.
no, I won't judge you, I'll just be sad.
Yeah, I was like just trying to figure out how to not disappoint Sierra.
I think that was the answer.
It's okay, I don't care. I'm gonna stay excited.
I think that was the answer.
He drinks tea. He drinks tea. I love it.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I guess okay, well, we
Just
can talk.
basking in the moment.
No, well, yeah, I guess that's podcasting world. No silent moments. I read a book that seems similar to. I haven't read your book. I'm just here in the background, whatever. But what's this book called? There Will Be No Miracles. It's by like Casey something or another. I don't know, but it's a pretty good book. It's a pretty. I liked it. It was pretty life changing for me. But no, that's all. That's the only thing I was thinking about in that silence. And yeah, that's about
I was thinking about something. I have a question, Cedric. Over the last year, I've become pretty good friends with someone who's come into my life since I moved to Atlanta. Who his sister's wedding just happened, and about 3 years ago he was outed. His family found out about his HIV status, and they are hyper religious and sort of kicked him out, and he was not invited to the wedding. And it's sort of I think he now has some friends in Atlanta area, but overall I don't even know if he's trying to bridge the gap with them or not, but it's a really awful situation, Advice would be for someone that is shut out from their family,
and that's a horrible but
shut out from their family.
Prevalent reality for many, right? And for any number of things, and for it to be about something over which you have no control is really ridiculous. But I would say I go back to something I said earlier, but I'll be more explicit about it. And it's really sometimes the family of choice is a greater gift than the family of birth, right? Because it's what you make it. It's who you invite into it. We all just showed up into the families that we were born into, and sometimes that works out, and sometimes it just doesn't, right? And all things in between. But I think creating that family of choice, instills that sense of trust and confidence that I think a person would need in order to even consider wading back into, our biological family spaces, right? We can't go into those spaces still broken and hurt and alone, because that's what got us into the space that we're in, right? I mean, so no matter what, you're still going to have to build that circle of trust and support around you, to even, I think, fully consider, going back into that environment. And again, I think therapy, and if your friend's in Atlanta, Josh Noblet is a great friend of mine and a therapist there in Atlanta. Just throw that plug in there. I get no residuals, no kickbacks, anything like that.
Can you say it again?
Yeah, Josh
Josh.
Noblit. Josh Noblit. Noblitt. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, right there on
NOB.
Peachtree, right there in Midtown. Very dear friend of mine. Outside of this, I continue his direct contact information, but he's not the only therapist in Atlanta or the only one in the world. However, I think, that therapeutic relationship is one that I think is often undervalued and overlooked. And we think we can replicate that in other spaces, and we can't always do that, right? We can't always do that. But I think having that professional support is very helpful, particularly given the complexity just in the little bit that you named, being able to tease that out, and then, being able to establish relationships with people, who can truly be supportive and be present in ways that one's family can't. Yeah.
Cedrick, are you able or willing to read a few lines of the beginning of your book?
Sure.
I would be interested just to hear a few lines of it at the beginning.
All right. I can do that. It's actually, the preface is a letter to my grandmother, and sort of frames this whole deal. I'll start there. Dear Grandma, I have some secrets I need to share with you. I'm on my way back. I'm on my way to the cemetery to spend time with you as I do each time I return to Alabama. Yet this time is different. Now, more than 3 decades after your passing, we face a global pandemic, civil unrest, and economic collapse. The current climate is so unlike any other I have known that leaving anything undone seems careless. On the short walk from my car to your gravesite across the ankle-high Kentucky bluegrass and Bermuda strands, I'm consumed with anguish. Would you appreciate who I have become? Would you accept me, or would you rebuff me? You were a wife, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, sister, aunt, cousin. You were Southern Baptist, working class, conservative. You had a 6th grade education. You were a seamstress, a midwife, and a great cook. You were impeccable with housework, a whiz in the garden, thrifty, a generous giver, yet you never came across as a complex person. You were settled and secure in who you were. I crave a similar clarity and confidence in my own life, but instead I have struggled to embrace my own identities and celebrate my existence. I learned to lie about who I am. I learned to hide in plain sight. I faltered in intimate relationships and felt like an imposter in my professional realm. And finally, it all caught up with me. Several dark nights of the soul experiences culminated on a single day in 2015, and my whole world came tumbling down. I felt abandoned by the church and by close friends. All I had left was my faith in God and my hope that my life experiences and your imparted wisdom would sustain me.
Beautiful. Very nice. Lovely.
I love it.
Thank you.
Have you considered an audiobook? Because you have a very, very good voice.
Thank you. Yeah, my less studious friends have said, "Hey, why don't you just record this and sell it to us?" So, but no, I don't know. But thank you. I don't know what the publisher has in mind. I wait to be told, and then I snap into action.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, these are nutty times, and you kind of hit that point in your preface. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The times really set the stage, to like, as I said, everything stopped, So in the last trip that I was on before everything shut down was I went home, to visit. And then I got on a plane and came back, and I think it was 2 days later.
Shut down.
Everything shut down. Everything shut down.
Shut down.
And it seems that even though they've got sort of a handle on this whole situation with the COVID, that society, the mentality, has really changed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People have, are not. It's not
Your mic's too far, Grandpa.
fun and games anymore. Yeah.
Grandpa Mike up here.
I'm sorry.
Your
what was
mic's
that?
too far.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I
My
heard
mic is-
today an epidemiologist on NPR was saying, how, the reality is that, we keep talking about, the pandemic being over and that, that time may actually come. But the reality is we will most likely have to always, live with COVID in our midst. And we'll just have to figure that out the way we figured out how to live with all kinds of other stuff. Right. And that was a sobering thought. That light, I was sitting at a red light when I heard it, and light turned green, and there were a few honks behind me. So it took me to another place, to hear that,
Were you, and do you still preach over Zoom, or how did
Well,
that work?
when the pandemic, kicked off, I was still in a pastoral assignment. So I was leading a congregation full time. But as of July of this year, I no longer do that. So, but up until then, it was Zoom every week, Bible studies, meetings, everything was all on
Pajama
Zoom.
bottoms.
Everything. Yeah. And I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it, people were more engaged, and I felt like I had more FaceTime with people.
That's true,
right.
yeah.
It was, we made the most of it, in our little church, we made the most of it. And so now I've transitioned to another role. And so I've had to get to know staff and figure out, how to function in this new role without ever seeing anybody. Right. I mean, without being in space with them. So I've never started something in the
Congratulations
midst
on
of
the
a
new
pandemic.
role. Yeah. No.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. It's been fun. It's actually freed me up to be able to do things like this too.
How did you even think, or what? How did you even think, or what?
The publisher, the PR person with the publisher was like, hey, the editor, Ruth Mullen. Here's another story for you. Ruth Mullen was the copy editor, way at the end of the line, right? So there's like 4 or 5 other editors who do different things, who've read this manuscript several times over and over again. And then it goes to Ruth, who's the end of the line, who gets the whole thing. And she hadn't read anything. She read it and was just like, nope. So we had to rearrange the whole thing. So the final product is really Ruth's brainchild, right? So that's why it's not linear. That's why it's arranged the way it is, whole nine. So great thing. But when the book, so she got the book. By the time the book came to her and she read it, was doing her editing, she went and listened to YouTube clips. She went and found me. She Googled me, found me, to get my voice and all that. And then that's what helped her kind of, guide the whole editorial team to go a different way. And so we did. And I'm grateful that happened that way. And so the whole team from the beginning was, we have to find a way to get you in front of people talking about this. Right. So I was like, okay, I don't know how we do that. And they're like, we do. And so that's how all that happened. And to finish the story about Ruth, which is actually a sad story, after the book was published and, the publisher received copies of the book and all the editors received a copy, she got hers like on a Thursday. That Sunday, she sent an email to the team, just proud of the product. And in her email, she said something like, I don't usually do this, but I think this is so good that you have to enter it into competitions, both for cover design and for content. And then she gave us a list of, awards that she thought we ought to submit for. That Tuesday, she sent that on Sunday. That Tuesday morning, I responded to the team and said, hey, I read Ruth's notes. I think that's great. Definitely want to go in this direction. That evening, the publisher sent a message back to all of us, letting us know that Ruth had been hit by a bus and it died the day before. Right. So this was potentially the last thing that she read before she got hit by that bus. And sent us that email. So there's no way for me to conceive of, to think about, to even receive praise for this book without thinking about Ruth and her contribution to it.
Yeah.
And to know that one of the last things she did was to really celebrate the work that we all got to do together, so so grateful to have a team, right? I've had a staff before, but I've never really been part of a team like this, and so it's great. It's great. It's very different.
Yeah. Thanks, Ruth.
Yeah. Grateful.
Cedrick, did you? I don't recall you mentioning any particular artist that you like, vocalist or musician or anyone in that realm.
Oh yeah,
Music?
yeah. My two favorite musical artists are, bear with me, Tracy Chapman and Prince.
Okay.
Like they're like my two favorite musical artists.
Fast cars and
because they're both great lyricists. What's that?
Fast cars and hot and little red Corvettes, and there you are.
There is that, right? There is that. But yeah, both of them are great lyricists, and I think so undervalued and underestimated in their talent. Those are my two favorite. Now, my favorite performer though is Tina Turner. Just hands down favorite performer. It's because I like her story, and yeah.
All three are well known. So
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Do we want to do final thoughts or?
Every time as we're sort of getting towards the end, we just go around and give.
Talking about lyrics too.
well, for me,
of
I
artists. The fact that Stevie Wonder can write about some stuff that, like, stuff that he can see when he can't see, in such detail.
Right.
I don't know. Like, I talked to my dad because he's a big Stevie Wonder fan, and I sometimes think that he doesn't write his own lyrics. I'm sure he does. I mean, he does write his lyrics, but I'm just like, there's no way. He can't. But I'm sure you can. But that's it. They're my last final thoughts. Lyricist Stevie Wonder's great.
I love it.
Is your book, would you consider it autobiographical?
Yes. This is autobiographical. It's the genre is memoir, and so yes, it's autobiographical.
When your
yes.
editor, and when your editor jarred by that, or no, it was like a great decision right away.
I went into this process, like I said, I was not seeking to write a book, right? This is just an exercise I was going through. And so once I entered the whole publication process, I just said, I'm open, right? And so whatever they tell me to do, that's what I'll do so that I learn. And I have to trust them because this is what they do. This is not what I do, right? So I was just open. So whatever they told me to rewrite or to, dig deeper, that's what I did, right? And so I tried to be a good student first, and then tried to do my best writing second.
Grandpa, what's your final thought, Grandpa?
I couldn't hear you completely. What was that, Brandon? Oh, my final thought was that you're a very interesting guest. I've enjoyed this program.
Yeah,
It's hard with Grandpa these days.
Kept me awake.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
It has been so wonderful having you on, Cedrick. You're such an interesting person, and I love your perspective. It's been very nice and refreshing to have a more positive outlook on Christianity. I wish I'd had it growing. I wish I'd had your outlook growing up, and I really can't wait to read the rest of the book. Brandon didn't forward it to us until like a few hours ago. But
So sorry.
but I love it. I
So
can't.
sorry.
I've loved it. I haven't gotten very far yet, but I cannot wait to finish it. And I'll
Go
let
ahead
you
and
know
put
when I
that
do it.
audio book out.
I'll reach out to the publisher tomorrow and see what are we doing with the audio.
Yeah.
What's happening with the audio?
I demand-
Right.
And if it's audiobook, you have to read it yourself.
Yeah, the
please.
people want an audiobook, right?
Yeah.
They want it.
Yeah. Yeah, not read by some shitty
No, this was a
actor.
4-star review. It would have been 5, but I had to read it myself, and I just wanted to hear Cedric.
Right.
Yeah. Cedric, what are your final thoughts?
Just just grateful for the opportunity to be in this conversation with the diverse perspectives, and appreciate diving into the questions, and my hope, my final thought is a hope, is that we just continue to have open dialogue and face the world with more curiosity than we do with angst and anxiety.
And links, places people can find you, all of that, and then we'll sign off.
Yeah, CedricBridgeforth.com, AlabamaGrandson.com. Books available on Amazon.com. And it's just Cedric Bridgeforth on all social platforms. There's only one of me in the world. It's easy to find.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you came on. Really great talking.
Yeah, thank you all.
Really enjoyed the program.
Hope you get that dryer.
Podcasting with Grandpa Bart and Rosie, always on his shoulder. This is Grandpa and Chill.
Grandpa and Chill is brought to you by your hosts, Brandon Fox, Bart Frank, and Phines Jackson. Our producer is Sierra Doss. You can find episodes old and new on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch the show, and follow us on Twitter for behind-the-scenes moments you can't get anywhere else.